Real quick little addendum in terms of Barnes and Noble. Now, like I said, the only book chain I know that still exists in any great numbers, at least up here, is Barnes and Noble. Now, Books A Million exists. I've only seen it in Florida. I'm sure it exists elsewhere. I actually like Books A Million a lot. In some ways, they're a good. They're not the same as Barnes and Noble, just with a different name. But we'll focus on Barnes and Noble. You know me. I love to go to Barnes and Nobles. I love to see the magazines. I love to see books. I love to get a coffee and be all fancy and stuff, right? But you've noticed Barnes and Nobles, like little changes. Like they have like the gay ones now, which are like the ones where I have to buy something with a World War II German Wehrmacht weapon on the cover. I have to do that every time I go to them. But the one that we go to around here is still like one of the old school ones. So what do you notice about the Barnes and Noble? What's a pro? What's a con? Just give your thoughts in general on this surviving book chain. There used to be B. Dalton's. There used to be Walden Books. There used to be all these things. Borders. They're all gone, man. So what's your take on Barnes and Noble?
It's like watching an NFL game for me. It's a way to track what the system wants of us over the coming year, because these people have a read on what their masters want. 4 years ago, you would only see a couple of books out about the Orange Man, and they were all negative. Now you have displays of side by side the Queen that's going to be coronated, great book about her, and then real positive books about the Orange Man, the savior of the world, So that right there, that's a 180-degree change. That's like when the NFL went from finding players for kneeling to finding players and suspending them for not kneeling, turned on a dime. When you see a major organization that's involved in media that does a 180-degree turn, then you know that they've got their marching orders explicitly or implicitly from somewhere. So what has happened in the fiction sections? A lot of that has stayed the same. Science fiction has gone edge out. 10 years ago, there was a lot of like big displays of science fiction stuff.
Right.
Pretty recent stuff, mostly written by women, derivative of stuff that had been written by men 30 years ago. Now, the science fiction section looks like an ancient history section. We're just edge out. It's just like people that know what they're looking for.
Real quick, edge out, and what's the other one?
The edge out and face out.
Face out.
That's
Explain that. I didn't even notice that.
Okay, so face out's for the idiots. The people that are going to buy a book because of the pretty cover.
Ooh, the pretty cover.
Okay, that's for the idiots. Okay, so the people that know what they're looking for are going to spend some time digging through something that aren't impulse buyers, that are intelligent buyers. You put the stuff edge out, so they read the binding. So they got to hang their head upside down and look sideways to look at it. But that's I just do my stretches when I'm looking for the bottom shelf stuff. Then every once in a while, some nice clerk will come up to you and say, "Are you all right, sir? Do you need to sit down? Can I get you some water?"
Yeah, half the time she's wearing a mask.
Okay.
Or he's wearing a mask.
So the past, starting with COVID, when the bookstores opened back up after COVID, they did a remodel during COVID, which was an intelligent move. And then when they opened back up, the fantasy section was quadrupled. The science fiction section was cut down, and I read some sample pages of some of the new fantasy. You got a lot of new fantasy trilogies. And these are good writers, and they're mostly men that are usually writing according to feminist doctrine. But they're men, and they're writing for men, like the new men, and they're writing escapism. So they're writing stuff for men that just want to step off the planet, just like when I was reading pulp stuff when I was a kid. So that tells you that right there that current society is not for young men. And if you're a young man, you could go escape by reading this stuff. And since we are now living in a science fiction dystopia, we're not even going to try to sell that stuff anymore, because that's on every billboard and every mental health clinic sign that you pass. Now, 2 years ago, at the same time, the history section was cut in half in favor of biographies of transgender people and memoirs of Muslim women. Okay,
Yeah,
so,
even better.
essentially, uh, but they've really packed out that 8 feet of history. They've really packed it out now. They've got hundreds of titles in the same footage that these 40 titles of, like, woke stuff is right next to
Yeah.
it. And the military history section is still huge, and that's to captivate, like, the remaining boomer guys.
The guy who actually has money, yeah.
Okay, to keep them coming in. So I think it's very instructive, and a proliferation of sports themes books up front mixed in with woke agenda books. Okay, so that's side by side, husband and wife. He can do his DraftKings,
Huh.
fantasy football gambling.
I'm not a
okay?
nerd. I
While
play fantasy
she's
football.
reading, her stuff.
Oh, the
So,
boss of the family.
but
yeah.
most importantly, there was a very attractive brunette sitting 30 feet behind the three fatties that were to our left yesterday.
Yeah.
And she looked very lonely. If I was a younger man, I might have bought her a coffee. But alas, I'm no longer young.
What, you gay?
So,
Jeez.
you know.
Buy a coffee. Well, I will
Yes.
say, I will notice that, like, for example, the one near us, the World War II history section is huge.
Yeah.
Huge. It's huge, right? Not so much in the one that's also close to us. I noticed one further east, definitely in what you call Blue County, much less of that. But so there's some variation, but yeah, the World War II stuff is friggin' huge.
Yeah, it'll be dialed in for the locality, but the stuff by the front door and on the approach to the coffee shop, that's standard. It's pretty much the same everywhere.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
I keep saying the unsung thing of the Barnes and Noble. Like I say, I go to the Barnes and Noble. I'll say it in Park Slope. Okay, obviously there's some good stuff there that you don't have in, like, the regular ones. The one in Mineola is a big one. It has a lot more variety than the one obviously Mineola in New York too. The one in Manhattan, in Union Square, that is, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, man, that's like a real, I haven't been there in years, but that has a lot, that has like Heidegger and, like, friggin'
Oh, I got the complete works of Washington Irving for $7. It was in a hardback, 790 pages.
yeah. So in terms of, like, the annex stuff and, like, the reprints of the classics, you always have, and they're for a really good price. I really think that in some ways that's like the unsung thing of Barnes and Noble. You can ignore the bloody modern world going into there and just go to the annex. Also, there's a lot of good stuff on, like, just photos of, like, the Civil War book that was really good. It goes for $40, and then you get it for $10 or whatever. And then you have, like, some of the art, a lot of, like, the Impressionists. I'm just giving a little sampling of stuff. So there is some useful things in the Barnes and Noble, and obviously you're looking for stuff that gets through that's really obscure. Like, what was the book that we got last time? The Scythians.
Yes.
Right, and you're impressed with that book.
Yes. And they replaced it. I bought the only copy, and it was replaced 2 weeks later.
Oh, wow.
So their inventory control, the POS system is good. For their hard copy classics, they use 2 different companies. The more readable and more affordable is Fall Rivers Press.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so if you're not near one of these, look up Fall Rivers Press. That's like who prints their $8 copy of Moby Dick in hardback.
Yeah. I will say, the classics, it is a good resource for that. So, all right, man. And also, if you like translated manga, I tell you, I'll leave it with this, man. My late fiance, she passed away just before they started doing all that. I can only imagine when I'm in there and I see, literally, it's one of the biggest sections in the Barnes and Noble of translated manga. She probably would have been amazed to see that. So, but whatever,
They have a markdown table usually as well, and I've found really good stuff there. Usually the stuff that gets knocked out of the collection is better than the stuff that stays in the collection.
Yeah.
So, that you can go to the markdown table and find some of the better items.
It's almost like you have to be you have to have a combination of intelligence and also a seeking nature, a questioning nature, and sort of a discriminatory nature in order to find some valuable gem in the sea of, mediocre woke vomit, you know. So I guess that's I don't know what to say. Paper vomit all over the fucking place.
The Gorgon Queen has a new book out, and she looked really scary with her facelift.
Oh my god, man.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, yeah. I tell you, if that Gorgon Queen, if she looked at me hard, I would feel fear. I would get a chill down my spine. So I don't want to end up in a dumpster somewhere in Virginia behind a Wendy, All right, man. Fight the. All right.